stage. Right? Is my voice clear enough, or should I? Okay, think about this, students. So production possibility curve, we have already discussed its graph that shows maximum output that a country can produce with available amount of resources. Now there are two possible shapes that the PPC can take, right? So you can take any two goods on the X and Y axis. So you can, let's say, take cars on the Y axis, right? How much is the quantity of cars that a country can produce? And similarly, you can take cell phones on the X axis. Now, this graph, the shape of the graph will either be a downward sloping curve like this, right? Outward bending, or it can be a straight downward sloping line like this, right? So what is the difference between the two? We talked about the difference between the two, right? So we said that the straight line, the straight downward sloping line has constant opportunity cost, right? Why is there a constant opportunity cost? I will explain you today, right? So first thing is that they have constant. Straight downward sloping line has constant opportunity cost. And what was the second thing? Sorry. What was the second feature of straight downward sloping line? Zen, do you remember? Constant opportunity cost was one feature of straight downward sloping line. And what was another feature? Do you remember? Okay, so let me remind you. So the other feature of straight downward sloping line is that resources are mobile. Resources are mobile between production of the goods, right? Which means that you can switch you can switch resources between the production of the two goods. Right. So constant opportunity cost, yeah, that was one, right? That's correct. And then resources are mobile between production of two goods, right? So between production of two goods. So that is why I said that these two products are related between production of two goods, right? So when you have a straight downward sloping PPC, it means that there is constant opportunity cost and these products are related, which means that you can move resources between the production of the two goods. That's what it means basically, right? Relative costs are also constant. Yeah. Relative cost. Right. So what do you actually mean with relative cost? Right. That is basically what the opportunity cost is, right? Relative cost means that how much do you need to give up on one good to get another good, right? Does it make sense? Okay, perfect. Right. Relative meaning in terms of the other good, right? Which is basically the opportunity cost. Okay. Now moving on to the other type of production possibility curve, which is basically a curve. It has increasing opportunity cost, right? So there are two features for that, right? Again, so there is increasing opportunity cost, and then the second one is that resources are not mobile or transferable between the production of two goods. Resources are not mobile, which means that you can't switch resources between the production of the two goods, right? Are you getting me? Now, if I have to look at in detail, right, diminishing returns, right, exactly, right, true, that's correct. So have a look at this. So if we look at this, just a second, right, and then have a look at this. So basically, let's talk about this, right? So let's talk about a curve first. So let's say you're operating on point A and then you switch to point B after that, and then you switch to point C after that, and then you switch to point D after that, right? Okay, now have a look at this. So initially your equilibrium, let's say initially the economy is operating at point A, right? And let's say it's producing X1 units of or Y1, right? So Y1 units of product Y, that could be any product, and X1 units of good X. Then when you move from A to B, have a look at this, right? So when you move from point A to point B, right, you can see that, let's say, let me complete off with the graph first, and then I explain what it means to have increasing opportunity cost. Then at point C, it will be like this, right? You're producing X3 units of product X and Y3 units of product Y. And then at point D, you are producing, let's say, y4 units of product y and x4 units of product x. Okay, now have a look at this. Then, so let's have a look at this. Initially, when you move from point A to point B, now what do we mean by increasing opportunity cost? So when the economy initially moved from point A to point B, right, you had to give up on this many units of Y, you had to give up on this many units of Y to get this many units of X, right? So this was the increase in X, this was the increase in X, and this was the negative Y, like this was the decrease in the quantity of Y. Then when you move from B to C, right, you gave up a little more of Y. You gave up a little more of Y, right? Can you see? So here the Y quantity was less. So there's less difference between Y1 and Y2, whereas there is more difference between Y2 and Y3. And you did not get as much increase, or almost, even if you say it's equal increase between X1 and X2, but you can see from the graph that X difference between X1 and X2 was relatively greater than X2 and X3, right? Are you getting me? So for a much greater decrease in Y, you got a smaller increase in X, right? And then eventually when you move from, let's say, D to a point here, E, right? How many units of Y did you give up on? You gave up on this many units of Y. You gave up on this many units of Y to only get this much increase in X, to only get this much increase in X. Are you getting me, right? So that is where the line becomes steeper. Can you see that line becomes steeper, right? So if you draw a gradient over here, it will not be very steep. And as you keep moving down the graph, you can see for yourself the line is becoming steep. So when you calculate the gradient of this line, the curve, basically it's not a line, it's a curve, right? So the gradient is increasing. That is what shows that there is increasing opportunity cost. Does it make sense? Increases while what we achieve is reduced. Exactly. Absolutely. Very good. Excellent. Right. So as you try to produce more quantities of X, you have to give up on greater quantities of Y. Right. And similarly, when you even want to produce more quantities of Y, every time you produce an additional unit of Y, you will be giving up on more units of X compared to before. Right. However, when we talk about a PPC that is a straight downward sloping line, however, if we talk about a PPC that is a straight downward sloping line, let me show you how that will look like, right? Then the opportunity cost is constant, which means that to produce one additional unit of X, you are always giving up on the same quantities of Y. To produce one additional unit of X, you always have to give up on same units of Y, right? So it's a straight down sloping line like this. Just a second. It goes like this. Okay, now think about this. So this is point A and this is point B. So every time you are giving up, so let's say this is C, this is D, this is E, and so on and so forth, right? So for every decrease in, sorry, for every unit, for every additional unit of X that you're producing, you will be giving up on the same units of Y. So it's not increasing opportunity cost, it is constant opportunity cost. Constant means that every time you have to produce an additional unit of X, you are giving up on the same quantity of Y. Nothing more, nothing less, right? It's fixed, it's constant, right? Which was not the case in the case in the case of a graph, right? So it's always increasing opportunity cost. It's increasing opportunity cost. In this case, we know straight line has a constant gradient, so opportunity cost is constant. And here the two goods will be related, right? Like wheat and rice, we know that they use similar resources. They both require fertile land. You require, what is that called? Fertilizers for both the products, because these are agricultural goods. You need same type of machinery like tractors, harvesters. The technology used in the production of both the products is exactly the same, right? Whereas in this case, it is not like that, right? So these will be unrelated products, as we were taking the example yesterday. So let's say if you're producing clothes and let's say cars, so these are completely unrelated products and they do not use similar resources, right? Right, yeah, that's correct. Right. So obviously, I think what you mean then, achieve is basically the additional output. You're talking about additional output. Yeah. So additional output is what you are achieving. So think about this. If you're moving from C to D, what is happening? You are giving up on Y to produce more X. You are giving up on Y. How many units of Y do you have to give up on? You have to give up on this many units of Y to get this many additional units of X, right? How do we calculate the opportunity cost if you're moving from C to D? So how many units of wheat you gave up on to get this many additional units of rice? So delta W means, sorry, this triangle means delta. Delta means change. So what was the change in the quantity of wheat divided by change in the quantity of rice? That will give you the opportunity cost. Does this help? Then, so let's say previously you were producing 10,000 units of wheat at this point C. Then when you move to point D, now you're making, let's say 8,000 units of wheat. And previously you were making, let's say 15,000 units of rice, and now you're making 20,000 units of rice. So when you move from C to D, right? When you move from C to D, your production of wheat decreased by how much? So that is 2,000 units, right? 2,000 units. And how many additional units of rice did you get? You got 5,000 additional units of rice. So that means that your opportunity cost is 0.4 units. Every time you produce one additional unit of rice, every time you produce one additional unit of rice, you have to give up on 0.45 units of wheat. Does this help? Right? Then, is it making sense? Is there any confusion so far that you want to ask? Right. Okay. Perfect. Great. Great. Right. The formula is also the same in this case. So when you move from A to B, right, the formula will not change. So the formula to calculate opportunity cost is always the same, right? But opportunity cost will increase as you produce more of one good. So let's do an example here as well, and then we will move to our today's topic. Okay. Okay. Now, if I have to quickly show you, sorry about that. Okay. Now, if you're moving from A to B, if you are moving from A to B, have a look at this. So let's assume previously you were producing 10,000 units of clothes, right? And here you were making, let's say 6,000 units of cars. Then your production reduced to 7,000 units of clothes, and your production of cars increased when you move from A to B, 10,000 units of cars. So how many units of clothes you had to give up on? So what was the change in the quantity of clothes? That will be in the numerator, because this is the product that you're giving up on. I did tell you yesterday that whatever product you're giving up on, that will be in the numerator, and the product that you're getting in replace of that, that will be in the denominator. So how much is the increase in the quantities of cars? That will be delta cars. So change in the quantity of clothes is 3,000, because that is decreasing from 10,000 to 7,000. And how much is the increase in the quantity of cars? 4,000 units. So you do the maths, and that gives you 0.75. This means that to produce every additional unit of car, you have to give up on 0.75 units of clothes. For each additional unit of car, you have to give up on 0.75 units of clothes. Right, 3,000 divided by 4 then. Excellent, absolutely, very good. Okay, now if this is clear, today we'll move on and talk about, yesterday we also talked about the shifts. By the way, are you clear with the shifts? If not, I can give you a quick recap. Are you clear what factors cause a shift in production possibility curve? If yes, that is great. Okay, perfect, perfect. Then we don't need to revise that. Excellent. Okay. Now moving forward, another major topic that is part of our unit one of AS economics is very simple. That includes the basic topics that we have already discussed. So far we have talked about basic economic problem, choice, right? What is basic economic problem? That is actually limited resources and unlimited wants. Then we talked about that whenever there is basic economic problem, there will be a concept of choice. You have to make choice between different products. When you make a choice, there will be opportunity cost. And then we demonstrated all of these three concepts using the production possibility frontier, production possibility curve, right? And then we also looked at the two possible shapes of production possibility curve, and we discussed the difference between the two. And we also talked about that what factors cause a shift inwards and outwards in production possibility curve, right? Now, this being said, today we'll move on and talk about another very interesting topic, that is money, right? Now, this is part of AS economics, right? And I would say relatively a lot of times you will see questions in exam related to money, right? Now, what is money? Let's think about this. Now, the money in very simplest definition is the currency notes and the coins that we use to make our transactions, right? Currency notes and coins, right? So we always talk about money, we always talk about cash, right? Coins, every economy almost has some coins, right? Some of its money is in the form of coins, right? Currency notes and coins used to make transactions is the simplest definition of money, right? This is making sense, right? But it doesn't stop over here, right? That can be recognized as a genuine means of payment for goods and services, as well as to settle the debt obligation. Excellent, excellent, absolutely, absolutely, right? Now, you have talked about two parts, right? Journal means of payment, exactly. So that is what I meant when I said to make transactions, right? So as a medium of exchange, right? Now, this is a technical word that we are coming to in a bit. Medium exchange is something that we'll discuss in more detail, right? So, and the second part that you said is anything that can be used to settle obligation. Now, what is an obligation? Financial obligation is when you have borrowed money from someone or you have to make a payment. Not always, it's not always about borrowing money. It can sometimes be about a financial obligation. Now think about this. If let's say I go to a shop and I have bought something, I go to the counter and now it is my financial obligation to pay for that product. Yes or no? Obviously that's not for free. I have to pay for it, right? So that is my financial obligation to pay for that thing. Similarly, if I have borrowed money from someone, my friend, my family, or anyone, that is a financial obligation that I have to pay. So if I want to pay them, pay whoever the money from whoever from whom I've borrowed the money from in the form of currency notes and coins. Do you think that person will accept that? So if I let's say I've borrowed some money from you and I want to pay you in the form of currency notes equivalent to the amount that I borrowed. So let's say if I borrowed 1,000 rupees and I'm returning you 1,000 rupees. My question to you is, will you accept that as a medium exchange or will you not? Very good. Excellent. Yes, you will, right? Because most probably I would have borrowed money in the form of cash. Most probably I would have borrowed money in the form of cash, right? And now I'm returning you that cash that I borrowed, right? So you will accept that as a settlement of my financial obligation. Huh? But let's think about it, and we'll talk more about it as we move forward, especially in A2. Modern form of money. Now think about this. If we think about modern form of money, it is not just about the currency notes and the coin. In Pakistan even, right? Pakistan is a developing country, right? So we do not have very advanced methods of payment, but still we do use some advanced methods of payment. Let me give you an example. Now, if I'm transferring money online, right? Now that is also money, right? Because think about it, if I'm making an online payment, what I basically meant was an online payment, right? So that is another form of money, right? So my bank account, let's say if there's a person A and his bank account shows 55,600 rupees, right? And he has to pay someone 5,000 rupees, right? Now what he can do instead of giving cash, right? Instead of giving cash, because what a currency notes is cash, it's cash, right? Coins, cash, right? Instead of paying someone in the form of cash, he or she can also make an online payment, right? A digital payment. And after 5,000 will be deducted. So what will happen? When the person has made the payment, 5,000 will be deducted from his or her bank account. So his bank account would now be left with 51,600 rupees, right? So that's also a form of money. That's, not in the form of cash, but that's also money because that's good enough to make transactions and that's good enough to honor someone's financial obligation. Then similarly, the checks that we use, right? So check is apparently a piece of paper. It is a piece of paper, right? But that has some financial value. Why? Because that shows that if I've written someone a check of 10,000 rupees, so 10,000 rupees will be deducted from my bank account and added to that person's bank account, right? Because I've written that person a check, right? Are you getting then is it making sense? But for now, in fact, in A2 economics, we will talk more in detail about how money is created. Apart from the cash that we know of, right? We'll talk about advanced, or more complicated forms of money in the sense that how banks create money. When they give loans to individuals, how they create money, right? So we'll talk about all these things later on, right? But for now, in AS, all you need to know is that money is the currency notes and the coins that we are using to make transactions or to honor our financial obligations. Is this clear? Right? I'm good. Okay. Now, given we are clear on what money is, right? We will move on and we will talk about, right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Right. Now we'll move on and we'll talk about a little bit about history of money, right? Now, why is that important? Because that will give you a better understanding of why money was developed the way it is nowadays, right? So the currency notes that we use, that has not always been used, right? In the history of human being, right? It was a slow and gradual what is that called? Evolution through which we discovered the modern form of money, cash and coins that we use. So the earliest human civilization started off with the concept of barter, right? Now, barter system was very simple, that people had goods and services that they exchanged for other goods and services. So basically, a simplest definition for this barter system would be using goods and services to buy other goods and services, right? Or simply speaking, exchanging goods and services for other goods and services. Using goods and services to buy other goods and services. Okay, now the idea here was that people were obviously not aware that they need a special commodity that is only used as a medium of exchange, right? So it was very, I would say, primitive societies, not very advanced, not very developed, right? So they never came up with the idea of developing a special commodity, a product that is only used as a medium of exchange. So what they knew was that, let's say I'm a farmer, I grow crops, and then obviously being a farmer, I will have the food that I need most probably, but obviously I will not have other things that I need. I need what? I need house to live in. I need clothes to wear, right? I need, I don't know, a cow for my home. I need other things, blah, 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 long list, right? Now, what people thought about that, okay, how about I just specialize in being a farmer. And this is another thing that we'll talk about after this, that specialization was something that human beings discovered early on in their, early on in human civilizations, right? So let's spend some time and talk about, because these concepts are very interrelated. So we should know how specialization made discovery of money possible, right? Now think about this. Before this concept of specialization, what people used to do was like do everything on their own, right? So obviously, what would be the opposite of specialization? Do everything on your own, right? Like for instance, if I need to have food to survive, I should grow my own food, right? If I need clothes to wear, I should make my own clothes, right? Right? On your own, right? Now, this was not something very effective. This was not something very efficient, I would say. Exactly, diversification, exactly. So they used to do everything on their own. Why? Because they never thought about that they can rely on someone else. So this was even before the concept of markets came into being, before the concept of markets came into being, right? So think about this. At this time, when people used to rely on themselves to do everything, concept of market came into being. Okay, so why was concept of market important, right? Because people never thought about that there could be someone else in this society, in this country, who can provide for their needs, who can provide them the goods and services that they need. So all they could think about was, we have to do everything that we have to do, right? Now, and as you very rightly said, that was diversification, like doing a little bit of everything. As we say, jack of all trades, master of none, but jack of all trades, right? But this was inefficient, right? So just imagine, I cannot have every skill that I need. I might not be a good cook. I might not be a good tailor. I cannot cut my own hair. Are you getting me? So there are so many things that were not happening, and that was not very efficient. That is when human beings realize that specialization is something that they should do, right? Now, specialization is opposite of diversification, where you choose focus on 2 to 3 products, or sorry, 2 to 3 tasks. Focus on 2 to 3, 1 to 2. I mean, limited tasks. Let's use the word limited. Focus on limited tasks in which a person is good at, person is good at, and right, then exchange the surplus, right? I'll tell you what do I mean when I say exchange the surplus. Exchange the surplus to buy other goods and services that you cannot produce, or you are not good at. Exchange the surplus to buy other goods and services, other goods and services that you are not good at producing yourself. Services that one is not good at doing himself, right? Okay, now let me read your comment. Okay, so the idea here is, where they have comparative advantage. Exactly. Comparative advantage is the right word to use for this kind of this kind of concept, because comparative advantage means that when you are relatively better than someone else. Are you getting me? So when you're relatively better than someone else, that is the skill that you want to choose, right? So if I thought of becoming, if I'm a teacher, so most probably I will be good at teaching. That's why I chose this profession. Similarly, people who work as, I don't know, who work as photographers, who work as singers, who work as sports athletes, right? So they are the people who are good at those things. That's why they chose to do that, right? So they have a comparative advantage. They're comparatively better than other people, other human beings, and that's why what makes them efficient in that skill. So coming back to the point, what is specialization? Specialization is focusing on limited tasks in which a person is good at, and then exchanging the surplus to buy other goods and services that one is not services that one is not good at doing himself, right? So teacher, what will a teacher do, right? A teacher will only teach, and in exchange of that, right, we are talking about the barter system at the moment. So a teacher will only teach and in exchange get the other services, right? So let's say if I'm not a doctor, I don't know what to do if I fall sick, right? But I'm a teacher. So what I can do, if I have to go to a doctor to take his services, to in exchange for his medical services, I can offer the doctor to teach his kids or her kids for free, right? So that is how things started off in barter system, because there was no currency, there was no concept of money. So people used to use goods and services to buy other goods and services, right? So that is what happened. But specialization made it necessary. But here's the problem. Now we are coming to the main part of the question. There was a major problem here. Can you realize? So think about this. What example I've given you over here, that if I have to go to a doctor to take the medical services, then in exchange, what can I offer to that person, right? In exchange, I can offer that person teaching services. But here's a small problem. So obviously the doctor himself is qualified enough, he or she has studied already, whom can I offer the teaching services? Perhaps to their children, but if they have no children, are you getting me? Now, this is a very problematic situation because I want to avail a service, but in exchange, I have nothing to offer to that person. Are you getting me? Now, this is where human beings realize that this is becoming more complicated. So they started specializing, focusing on few things that they were good at, right? And then they wanted to exchange these goods and services for the goods and services that they needed. But here comes a problem. I go to a shop. Let me give you another example. So I go to a shop and I want to buy food, right? Let's say this is before money, right? This is before money was invented. Barter system you're talking about. I want to buy food. Now, what can I offer to the farmer or what can I offer to the shopkeeper, right, to buy the food? If I'm a teacher, again, the problem is if I offer him teaching services, he or she might not need it. Okay, that's a problem, right? What else can I offer? I don't know, my car or it was before cars were invented, but anything, you're getting my point, right? So I can offer him perhaps, um, um, I don't know, a notebook, a pen, right? Water or anything, any product in exchange, right? But the challenge was to find the person who is willing, right? Who is willing to buy the good that you are selling and in exchange give you the product that you need. Let me repeat it. Double coincidence of wants. So the problem with the barter system was finding the right person who is willing to take the product that, willing to take the product that you have to offer and is willing to give you the product in return that you need, right? And this concept is known as double coincidence of wants. The biggest challenge with the barter was that there was double coincidence of wants. That's again part of our syllabus. That's why we're discussing this, right? So double coincidence of wants, I will write down the definition right now. Double coincidence of wants mean, right? The need, the problem in which exchange cannot be possible unless you find the person that wants to buy the good that you're willing to sell and is willing to offer the product that you need. The problem with, just a second, double coincidence of wants, the problem in which exchange is not possible unless two people are willing, or let's make it a little more simpler. Unless in fact, both will be sellers in this case. Right? Unless you are willing to give the product that other person wants and are willing to accept the product that other person has to offer, right? The product that other person, then is this making sense? That other person has to offer, right? Now, this is a slightly lengthy definition. We can also think about something much simpler, that other person has to offered. Okay. Now the biggest challenge with barter system was where you were exchanging goods and services for other goods and services. Great, perfect, very good. So the biggest challenge, what we're talking about. So we started off, let's do a quick recap. So we briefly discussed what is money, right? And then we talked about that there is modern form of money where we can make digital payments, we can give someone a check, right? Now even there are digital wallets, right? Where you get like Jazz Cash. You might have heard the idea of Jazz Cash. You don't even need to make a bank account for that, right? You just through your phone you can avail banking services and all that, right? But those are very modern form of money. So we will not go in that detail, especially not in AS. In AS, what we need to know that what is money? Money is the currency notes and the coins, right? Basically the currency that are used to make transactions and to fulfill your financial obligations. Okay. Now moving forward from here, we said that this is not the form of money that humans have always used. So this is still a relatively new advancement in human civilization, right? Before that, people used to do barter. What they used to do was exchange goods and services for other goods and services, as simple as that, right? And within that, we said that people obviously started very before the concept of markets where they are buyers and they are sellers. Before the concept of markets was even introduced, people used to diversify. They used to do everything that they need for their livelihood on their own. I need clothes, so let's be a tailor. I need to eat food, so let's be a farmer, right? Or grow something on your own, and so on and so forth, right? But that was not very efficient way of going about it, because obviously we can only be good at one or two things, not everything that we do. Okay. Then humans realized that how about we just specialize in few tasks that we're good at doing, and we generate a surplus with that, exchange the surplus for other things that we need. So if I'm really good farmer, then I should just focus on growing the crops. I will produce a surplus, surplus meaning more than what I need. Surplus meaning more than what I need, right? So if I need 8 tons of wheat for my entire year, I don't know if that is a lot or that is less. And I produce 15 tons of wheat in 1 year as a farmer, because obviously I'm specializing in that and I'm good at it, right? So 15 minus 8, that gives me a surplus of 7 tons of wheat. Now I will exchange this surplus of wheat or whatever product it is for other goods that I need, right? That is how specialization happens. Now, the problem with that was that with barter, now we're talking about the problems of barter. The problem with the barter, the biggest challenge with the barter system was that there is always double coincidence of wants. Now, that what that means is the problem in which exchange is not possible, right? Unless you're willing to give the product that you're giving willing to give the product that other person wants and are willing to accept the product that other person has to offer, right? So that was the biggest challenge, right? Apart from this, right? So that was one biggest challenge, but there were some other minor problems as well. Problems of barter system. Okay. Now, let me tell you some other challenges with the barter system. Another challenge with the barter system was problems of barter system. The second challenge with the barter system was, as we call, that goods are not divisible. Now that's a very interesting point. Think about this. Let's say the exchange rate between cow and wheat, because think about this, people can exchange any two products if you're doing a barter system. Let me emphasize a little bit on this point. Then think about this. If you're doing a barter system, right, then any two people can exchange between any two products. Are you getting me, right? So one person might be willing to sell cow and buy wheat. Similarly, some people might be interested in selling water or milk to buy water or anything of the sort, right? So you have to determine the exchange rate between all the products. Now, if let's say one cow, the exchange rate at any time is one cow equal to 10 kgs of wheat. One cow is equals to, let's say, 10 kg of wheat. This is the exchange rate prevailing in the market. Now I'm the cow owner and I only want to buy 5 cows, sorry, 5 kg of wheat, my bad. So if I own a cow and in exchange of a cow, I only want to buy 5 kg of wheat. Now that makes it zero point 0.5 cows. Yes or no? Simple maths would say that you divide the cow into half because this quantity is being divided, is becoming half. So you should also divide the other quantity in half. Okay, makes sense. But can we divide not by cow, right? Can we divide cow in half? We can't. Like technically we can if we slaughter the cow and everything, but still, where will you store the remaining half? I mean, it doesn't work like that. So if at any point in time I have to buy, right, half kg of wheat, that would not be possible. So the only thing that I can do is to sell that cow to that other person and in exchange take whatever quantity is available. So I can't really divide the goods in smaller quantities. But with money, as we will talk about, money is divisible into smaller quantities, right? If you go to a shop, you have to buy something small like a candy, you can give 5 rupee coin, you can give 10 rupee note, right? If there is something big yet that you have to buy, you can give 5,000 rupee note, 1,000 rupee note, and so on. And this is available in every currency of the world, right? Not only with rupees, it's available, in dollars, it's available in pounds, and there's a word for it. We'll discuss it when we come to that part of the topic. Now, the second problem with the barter system, as we just discussed, that goods are not divisible. You can't divide them in smaller quantities depending upon the need of the transaction. Goods are not divisible. Another example of that, if I have to quickly give you, let's say my teaching, one teaching hour is equals to 5 kg of milk. Let's say one teaching hour is equals to 5 kg of milk, right? I only want to buy half kg of milk, right? I don't want to buy anything more than half kg or 1 kg of milk. Now, what will I do? This is still manageable. I teach for 15 minutes, but I mean, that kind of makes things tricky, right? So are you getting me? Now, goods are not divisible. Then, are you following this? Do let me know if at any point anything is confusing or you want more explanation. We'll be happy to help, right? So goods are not divisible, right? Another challenge. Another problem with the barter system is that goods are not portable. Goods are not portable. Portability means mobility. Portable meaning how easy it is to transfer a product from one place to another. Portable, right? So you must have heard the word portable, right? Laptops are portable, desktops are not, blah, 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 right? So goods are not portable. Think about this. If I have to go to market to buy wheat, right, then I would need to transport a cow somehow to the market, right? Apart from the fact that cow is not divisible, another big challenge that I have to face every time I have to go somewhere to make a transaction, I have to carry along something that can be very heavy, right? Even 10 kg of wheat, if I'm taking this to the market to make a transaction, I mean, that will be a heavy thing, right? So cow, how would you transfer a cow, right? So those are some of the challenges that were present in the barter system. Goods are not portable, right? Goods are not divisible. Then another problem, goods are perishable. C, A, B, C, and D. Goods are perishable, which means portability issues. Very good, excellent. Goods are perishable, right? Now you can't store a product for a very long time, especially a food item, right? You can't store a product for a very long or indefinite time period, especially a food item, right? So if I have, uh, you know, if I'm a farmer and I grow fruits or vegetables, right? And I don't want to sell my vegetables at the moment because I don't have the need for anything else, right? So if I don't want to sell my, wheat at the moment or my fruit, whatever vegetables, whatever I'm producing, right? Because I will need it in the future, right? I don't want to sell it right now. But then the challenge is that goods are perishable. I can't store wheat or fruits or vegetables for a very long time period. Goods are perishable. Again, that was another problem. So long story short, due to all these problems, double coincidence of wants, goods are not portable, goods are not divisible, goods are perishable, right? Due to all these problems, humans realized that barter system is not a very efficient method of exchange, right? Due to the problems of barter system, humans realized that barter system is not a very efficient method of exchange. That barter system is not a very efficient method of exchange. Do you agree with me? Okay, now after this, okay, we do understand after looking at the entire situation that we've just discussed that it is not, barter system is not a very efficient method of exchange. Then what did people do, right? So we will just touch upon this a little bit, and then I have another class and we'll continue from here tomorrow. After the barter system, when that system failed, that was not efficient. By then, human had discovered things like gold and silver. So people realized, why don't they start using gold and silver coins? Because it is something valuable, and they are relatively easier to use, they are divisible, and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about this in tomorrow's class. That what were the challenges again with the gold and silver coins that prevented humans from using this as a currency, and then eventually the concept of money, the modern form of money, came into being. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, right? And then we will continue from there. So the ultimate topic that we have to discuss as part of our syllabus is functions and characteristics of money, but this all is also part of our syllabus, right? So is this clear? Then is everything clear from today's class? Was there anything not clear? Anything you want to ask me? Any confusion? Right. Okay. Perfect. Very good. Good to know this. So we will continue from here in tomorrow's class. See you then. Have a good night. Take care. And I'll see you tomorrow. Allah Hafiz.